My story is lengthy, for that I apologize, but I feel heartbroken and not sure how to fix myself. I'll start by saying I know no one is perfect, and it takes two to make a relationship work. I met my now 46-year-old ex-boyfriend through MySpace almost 15 years ago. What started as his GF at the time, talking to me, I think looking for a third, which not for me, turned into him messaging me. Somehow we exchanged phone numbers, and for about 10 years he would text a few times, or I'd stop to see him at work once or twice a year. Strictly platonic, was not my type, and I had a boyfriend. I never asked his relationship statuses throughout the years, as it was platonic, and he wasn't my type. Fast forward now 10 years since I met him through MySpace. My current relationship wasn't the best with my boyfriend of almost 10 years. And when I was drunk, randomly decided to stop and visit him at work, I guess just wanting attention and support. Nothing physical, still platonic. But that is where it all began. We began talking more, and I began spending time with him. He continued to push for a relationship, but we had nothing in common, and I had a boyfriend. I started developing feelings and told my boyfriend there was now someone else, and I began a physical relationship with my now ex, but now he soon became distant, going one weekend from wanting a picture of us together to suddenly being busy at work. So one night I stopped to visit him at work. His face had a total look of shock, as I was greeted by a desk girl with a harsh tone. He was busy working, so I asked him to text later. As I walked out, I heard the desk girl loudly question, "Who's she?" I wanted to turn around and say the girl he's been having sex with, but it was his place of business, so I just left. He met up with me the next day to explain that was his ex-GF he got back together with. I was of course hurt, but again don't understand why he couldn't be honest instead of using work as an excuse to why we hadn't seen each other. Just say I hot back together with my ex-GF. He claimed they were together for 4 years, and her son had lived with him at one point. Not sure how true it was, or the details, because I know of another woman he had some involvement with at some point in those 4 years. When I asked where she thought he was as he was meeting up with me, he said my mother's. All of this should have been signs, especially as he later told me the reason for the final breakup was her being insecure. I mean, you did lie and tell her you were at your parents' when meeting up with me. Was that the only time you ever lied to her? I was not willing to have sex with him knowing he has a girlfriend. That's not who I am. So I left. We still texted from time to time, and after a few months, they broke up again and back to messaging me. But I decided to get back with the boyfriend I left for him, and wasn't willing to break that up to be hurt again. But I did make the mistake of cheating with him a few times. I was not on social media, but apparently there was in fact another woman in the picture, which I had no clue till once we were together a while, and say her picture on his social media as WCW pictures same time he was hooking up with me. After several months, I finally made the split again from my boyfriend to be with him, but again busy. I suspect he was still with this other woman, so I waited around until finally a few months in finally referred to me as his girlfriend. I still had my reservations. He never really took me out. Times he'd disappear for more than a day claiming he was in bed sick. His business put on a Halloween party. He didn't tell me or invite me. Christmas time he lied saying he was at his parents', but I drove by and he was home, so I stopped. He began claiming his anxiety was bothering him. I wonder if in fact he was upset about this other woman. New Year's Eve again lied, said he was at his parents'. I even helped him buy seafood for 2 people. For New Year's he claimed his stepfather did not eat seafood. I again drove by and he was home. This time I did not stop by. I now know around Christmas this other woman started showing up on his social media. I should have had a conversation with him about who she was when I saw her pictures from previous year on his Instagram. But I figured I wasn't his girlfriend at that time, so none of my business. As time went on in our relationship, he still never took me out on dates, unless it was a movie he wanted to see after he finished working. Sometimes he would say we would see a movie after he saw his parents on Sunday afternoon, and I'd wait for a text that never came. One random day, as he was fixing his vehicle, we were kissing and he looked into my eyes and said, "Please don't hurt me. I would never." But I thought OMG has so sweet and vulnerable. So many days when I would spend the night the next day before getting out of bed, I'd squeeze him tight and say, "Don't go." I loved him so much, but things seemed off. One morning I took him to pick up his vehicle from the garage and he commented about taking it a few cities away to go to Cabela's to test the transmission soon. Ironically, that very same day, this other woman posted a review of that Cabela's. Finally, come April, I reached a breaking point when I sent him seductive pictures and I got little to no response. I felt totally humiliated and rejected because I hate any kind of pictures. But I put myself out there for him. I had a friend's birthday dinner that evening and wanted to see him before dinner, and he again lied saying he was at work but his car was home. I did not stop because I was afraid to make him angry, as a few times I had randomly stopped by in the past when he would not respond. But I desperately wanted to see him and talk to him about us, as things didn't feel right. That night at dinner, I drank a bit too much and drove over after dinner to find a strange car in his driveway. He claimed he was at his parents', so I drove up there. He wasn't there. So I was distraught and furious and sent him a message with a picture of the car's license plate. His response was anger, told me he was selling that car for his cousin. He's not a cheater. He doesn't play games. I did shortly after see the car up for sale. However, he convinced me I ruined our relationship. I began therapy to try to fix the broken part of me that caused me to ruin my relationship. He would not talk to me. I was unable to eat or go to work. I would randomly get blank text messages from him at times, or the occasional casual text. When I would respond, he would claim must be something wrong with the provider. He didn't text, or it was from a few days ago. I checked with friends figuring they would know others with same cell provider, and no one had these strange messages or problems. Finally, he agreed to let me come over. Why I didn't run away was beyond me. I knew he was using me for sex, as if he was doing me a favor, but figured at least he's not with someone else. What I didn't know was him saying he did not want to look at me meant he put a bag over my head to have sex, and then I was told to leave. To this day, I carry so much shame for not running away immediately, but I was so desperate to fix what I thought I broke. By now it is May, and his birthday is approaching. I knew he would not spend his birthday alone, and knew he would go out UTV riding. I did see and have sex with him that morning, despite a strange car being in his driveway that night. I drove by after coming home from Philly after 2 a.m. But by 10 a.m., I was there in his bed, so maybe the neighbor parked there? I mean, can one woman really leave your bed so early for another one to be in it? Apparently it can. After I left, he was off to UTV ride. I texted that evening telling him to let me know if he wanted company, to which I was met with angry response telling me he was out riding and doing what he loves and only responded 'cause stopped for a break. As he's texting me, I'm driving by where he parks his vehicle, as it sits in the lot with trailer, so it's awfully hard to UTV ride without your vehicle and trailer to get back. I didn't say I was on to him, just let it go, as he then began texting how it would take time to build back trust. Later that night again drive by, same car in the driveway, which I later came to find out was in fact her car. A car I'm also positive I had seen other occasions parked evenings on street in front of his house, but it was a bright yellow car, so I just figured neighbor kids' friends, assuming it was a younger person's car. So a few days go by, and I stop by his garage to confront him about her in the car. I was told he just started talking to her again. Lie, she showed up on his social media in December. I now know she went UTV riding with him in February, and he posted a picture on UTV Facebook he runs of her in his UTV. I was told he didn't know whose car it was. Different people park there all the time. This from the same man who got upset a few weeks ago. Someone parked in the spot he usually does on the public street in front of his house. It's now Memorial Day weekend. I'm still a mess, but he's going away on a UTV trip. I'm still convinced I messed up our relationship, so I even stopped drinking for the month to avoid over-emotional reactions. He comes back from trip and posts his trip pictures, and oops, there she is in the picture. I simply texted thanks. A few weeks go by, I hear nothing, then the texts come in. I hate everything you did. I wanted a future with you. You ruined us. So I gave in. I started talking to him again because I have no solid proof. I sent a message to the woman I suspected on Instagram and no response. So we start seeing each other, having sex. But things are off. One night I came over after a few drinks and felt very tired. But he made sure to keep me from passing out and had to rush me out. So a few days later, I'm out with friends having drinks and maybe too many, because my friends sent this other woman a message. I know I'm 33, not the most mature, but that sparked her to finally respond to my message from previous month. She confirmed the yellow car I had seen was in fact hers, questioned how I could have had sex with him those mornings when her and her daughter had spent the night. She of course wanted proof, sent her screenshots of our texts, that proves nothing. Wanted me to describe things in his house. I went as far as describing specific candy from local shop in his refrigerator. Her response to all I described was those are odd things to describe. When I refused to tell her my last name, she told me I was Megan or Sherry and said they were happy together and blocked me. I should have described the bleach spot on the mattress from when my monthly friend came during sex. When I call to confront him, he threatens to block me if I call him one more time, refusing to talk. I called and yup, I was blocked. I'm not sure how many months I was blocked for until the fall I started getting messages again. Started with just, it couldn't have been an old response, it had been months. Then the, I miss you text began. I had no idea what their relationship was at this point, but I agreed to meet up and come over to his house. I wanted answers. He wanted me to spend the night, but I refused to have sex or stay the night. I did make a comment about him being poor life choices. No to be hurtful, just protecting myself from this man who hurt me, degraded me, putting a bag over my head, treated me like garbage. He promised we would have a conversation, just not that night, so I left. I received texts for a few days, then he disappeared. Within a few weeks, he began posting pictures with her saying she's what makes him happy. And within 2 months of that last night, he tried to get me to spend the night he moved her and her daughter in and proposed to her. After several months, I figured enough time had passed by, and I sent an email just looking for closure, to which I was met with anger, claiming I just wanted to blame him for everything, saying I talk a lot of shit. I told him in fact I had not told anyone who he was, and in fact those I told about what happened besides my absolute immediate best friends had no idea who this man was I dated, and told him I emailed instead of texts because I did not want a back and forth conversation. I wanted his story, who she was, what their history was, how I became involved. I wasn't trying to debate, just wanted his words of what happened. He continued to respond looking for argument, and I never emailed again. It is now a year since that email, and every couple of months since then, I receive a text saying, "Thinking of you, hope things you are good." The last one was just last week. I have never responded. From what I have seen him post, if I look, he has gone from the man trying to have sex with me 2 months before proposing to her and liking almost entirely seductive-looking photos of women on Facebook with a Tinder account as of the same time he last saw me, to now a gym-going family man, driving her daughter to school, using his parents' address so she can go to a better school district, posting memes about having a wife. So why the **Siweek even text me anything? If he is sorry, why not apologize? Provide closure. Explain how at the time a 43, 44-year-old man with an adult daughter and now almost teenage stepdaughter could treat a woman so horribly. If someone put a bag over his daughter's head during sex, is that okay? Or if some guy treats your stepdaughter that way one day, is it okay? I should have communicated better, should have tried to involve myself in his hobbies. But did lacking those things mean I deserved being lied to, used, cheated on, degraded? Why is he texting me at all? How do you change so quickly? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After some useful comments, I'll add some clarifications. I visited his business throughout the years. At his request to stop by his business whenever, that was how he were used to communicating. Once or twice a year, I would stop by or occasionally text from him. When I stopped by to be greeted by unfriendly desk girl, it was because I was used to the freedom to stop by. I never stopped by after that day, and that girl, I have not been by his house in any capacity since that last time he tried to get me to spend the night 2 months before his proposal to her over a year and a half ago. Despite therapy and us having very different interests, my anxiety has gotten so bad, I avoid the whole small city town he lives unless I need to go to the agency I work at a few times throughout the year, or go to mall cosmetic store. I avoid any restaurants. I once went on occasions near his house. I know he would not be there, but it's too much for me to be that close to his house. After he was caught and he blocked me for that short time, I have never initiated a text, especially now that he is married or engaged. I feel it to be extremely inappropriate, even if I had a desire to communicate with him. He is the one who reached out to me 2 months before proposing to her. He is the one who now texts thinking of you. Hope things you are good every few months for the past year. I have never responded. It is possible and probable when he was first dating her, I was unknowingly the other woman because at that time I had no knowledge of his social media posts and had no social media accounts. After I was on to him, I have been told by more than one person he has a history of always having 2 women, and he is known to not be so nice to his girlfriends. Next story, story 2. This happened over a period of 1.52 years. I wanted to understand what happened. Is this guy a narc? Was I a rebound relationship? Help me understand some context to help illustrate, mind you. I didn't know all the details in certain moments when it happened, but this is what I can piece together. Me, 28F, Had gotten out of a 4-year relationship 2 months before meeting my ex, introduced in next paragraph. Dated him over pity rather than love, and should have broke it off sooner. Great on paper, but no real attraction. I didn't have the heart to break up him since he was going through depression, unemployment, family had cancer. Met my ex in November 2018. Met the dream requirements I wanted in a man minus height. Timing was my issue in meeting him. I'm an ISFJ, ex, 34M. Had a son from a previous 11-year relationship. He was severely depressed after having to move away from his family 6 years ago and returned to our city after his common law relationship failed. Moved back to his hometown in April 2018. Classic ESTP. Briefly dated his best friend, 32F, of 15 years for 2 months rebounding off his failed common law relationship. Extremely hardworking, clever, charming, attractive guy. Other girl, 36F. Longtime decade-plus friend of X. She dated his close friend of 15 years, 40M, for about 6 years before they had broken up. They remained close after the breakup since they were friends for 20 years. I believe they broke up in early 2018. She talked to the ex's baby mama every day, flew to visit him in his new city once, watched his son grow up. I think she's either an ENFJ, INFP, not that it matters though, but could help with the decisions made. Started seeing my ex summer of June 2018. Didn't know what she wanted in a relationship, and when ex wanted to make things official, she said, "Isn't what we have enough?" He felt hurt and betrayed by what he believed were her lies, and held on to this grudge into my relationship, which I was unaware of. When I first met my ex, it was on our way to a club. We met at our mutual friend's apartment, where he caught my eye. He thought I was with another guy at the apartment, but he was just a friend. He didn't want to intervene, but when he found out I wasn't with him, he approached me. We ended up dancing, making out. We really hit it off that night. He mentioned to me that night that he looked to date long-term, one girl at a time, and that he had a kid, and before anything could happen between us if I was okay with it. It didn't matter to me, and I thought him mentioning it revealed how serious he was. Asked my mutual friend what he's like, and she said he was a great guy, just a lot of baggage, but try dating him to see where it goes. My mutual friend is married to one of his male best friends. He ended up back at my place hungover the next day, and I had to take care of him. He really appreciated my care and expressed how thankful he was. Soon after, he was very grand in gestures to take care of me, offering me car rides every time, asking to assist with any task I mentioned. He had all the traits I looked for in a person for me. He was someone who balanced out my introverted side, his sense of adventure, spontaneity, being direct, and not being afraid to speak up when something wasn't right. I told myself the next time I fall for someone, I wouldn't settle. It would be someone I found super attractive, had valued honesty, fun, willing to communicate, compromise, and commit. My concerned friends knew I recently came out of my previous relationship and questioned if I was ready to date seriously. I thought I knew where my mentality was at, but I can see their point of view, and decided that maybe I didn't need a relationship and to work on myself. I ended up cutting it off with the guys I was casually seeing on dates, but nothing serious. My ex also voiced that if I was seeing other people to either pause, stop, or continue since he's been burned in the past, likely from other girl. So I also ended up cutting it off with my ex to work on myself, in which he was heartbroken to hear. Since he was someone I was so drawn to and found it so rare to find it, I decided that maybe that was a mistake and gave him a chance for a date. It was an amazing date. I did learn about his life and the baggage, but he wouldn't be the person he is today without his experiences. Nonetheless, I felt this internal fight, like I went against my values, and wanted to make sure I was happy with myself as a person before dating, because I had ruined my relationship with my first love, not being ready with my insecurities. I tried to cut him off. He tried to be friends with me immediately. I wanted space because I thought it didn't make sense, but I didn't want to lose him in my life. We ended up keeping in touch, but then I'd cut him off. And this would go on for a few months because we would end up hooking up, or I would propose FWB, and he would accept, only to act all sweet and relationship-like. Eventually, March 2019. I decided I had worked enough on myself, achieved some goals I desired, and it had been 6 months after my last relationship, and wanted to give him a shot. Our relationship took off and we were official by April 2019. Life was great. My career was skyrocketing. He finally landed permanent full-time at his job, and everything seemed to align. We were in the honeymoon stage, so I thought, June 2019, he had a major billiards tournament where I finally met girl, 36. What I was told from him was that she was his friend's girlfriend, the one of 6 years. He never told me they had broken up, and so I always thought she was still with her ex because all of them played on the same billiards team. They didn't act like a couple, but they were still best friends. I could tell she was a friendly, outgoing person by her interactions with others. When she first saw me, I was faced with a glare, and she never said a word, and I was never formally introduced. They ended up winning this billiards tournament for a trip to abroad. The rest of his teammates encouraged me to come out and support. My relationship with my ex seemed great. My family loved him. My friends thought he was smitten with me. He was chivalrous and took very good care of me. Could not stay away from me. Showered me with expensive gifts. Told me how he couldn't wait to move in with me. He was so excited to introduce me to his family and friends. He called me and sent loving texts every day. Couldn't wait to say he loved me. We solved conflicts in a civil adult manner, and if anything bothered me, he'd read me and encouraged me to open up. I thought it was exactly what I needed. We spent countless of hours and days together. This is the second time I've ever fallen so deeply in love. I thought this was it. August 2019 was when the tournament abroad happened, and I had joined them on their trip. They lost the tournament. He and I did enjoy the free time we had during our trip, but around the group he would say they weren't comfortable with our PDA, which he always initiated. He accused me of being insecure when I noticed his interactions with the other girl by saying you and girl seem really close. The other woman was nicer to me than the first time we met. She's a nice person, and we bonded over university experiences. Upon returning to our city, he told me that we should take a break. I didn't understand. Everything was going well. He said when he returned back to our city, he became a monster. He said he was suffering depression. I wanted to work things out together with him because I didn't believe in breaks. I told him we either work it out or break up, so we decided to work it out. I would give him space to sort out his feelings. Eventually, he called for a full break. I researched depression and let it be on his terms, sending out supportive texts to say, I'm always here if you need anyone to listen, not judging and just lending an ear. To this day, I can't figure if the depression was real at this time or not. He wouldn't necessarily take the break seriously. He would call a couple days to ask how I was doing and feel upset that I was sick and didn't tell him. He would message every so often to see how I was doing. I thought this was him recovering and that he loved me so much that he could fight this battle. A month and a half later, he called the break off. He told me that he never wanted to lose me ever again. We were happy and relived that honeymoon feelings. A month later, November 2019, I surprised him at his house since he gave me a copy of his keys. To my surprise, he didn't look excited and called for another break. By that point, I was irritated, and if he decided to call a break once more, I would have broken up with him. It was by December 2019 where he told me his relationship with his son was terrible since he had been neglecting him. It wasn't my job to tell him how to parent, but I would ask if he had spoken to his son, and he would tell me he plays games with him once a week. They're in different time zones, BTW. I wouldn't want to pressure him to talk about his son or anything about the future since it wasn't my place. I waited until he was comfortable to share, and when he was, I'd mention it. He ultimately told me he didn't see a future with me anymore, and I said, well, if that's the case, I don't see a point in continuing. So we broke it off. I was confused if it was his depression doing this because the week before that we were so happy. January 2020, he reached out to me, told me that he thinks that his decision that he made may not be the right one, and that he still had really strong feelings for me. He needed to sort things out. I thought this was his depression and his relationship with his son because his son should be a priority. I thought he was suffering, so I asked his best friend, 32M, that he worked with to keep an eye out for him when the break first started, as he had depression before. His best friend would tell me I'm a great girl, and he's being stupid and prideful. When he heard about our breakup, I would see if he knew what was going on. But he was a loyal friend and said if I wanted answers to reach out to my ex directly. I felt bad for always asking, so I decided to ask about how he was doing. He ended up talking to me very frequently, and his best friend eventually confessed his feelings for me. My ex found out and was upset and ramped up communications with me. He had told me his friendship with his best friend was rocky, but they would be okay. In the meantime, he had given his best friend the green light to pursue me. Eventually, as my communication with my ex increased, I let our mutual friends know that things are looking up. He wanted to spend Valentine's Day with me. He came over more often, and then it happened. His confession. He constantly used an excuse that he had headaches, tired, and feeling sick. I usually waited for him to initiate calls because I believed he was working on things with his son, busy with work, etc. I had called and sent him messages in which she saw. He had been spending all his time with her and lied to her about my dating history with him and that he was cheating on her with me. He still didn't tell me the truth. His family gave me an early timeline of when he started dating his best friend, girl, and me. She confirmed he cheated because we would be at his house at certain days. After another, he was not discreet, hiding it at home. I was so livid and upset that I told our mutual friends, my friends, everyone I could to rid of the hurt and betrayal I felt. He blamed me for making him lose his friends. His friends were shocked by his actions to see his use his family to lie to the girls, lie to his friends. Eventually he called to tell me that he was so blind, he couldn't see it was me all along who showed him the man he could be. That taught him a healthy relationship, but that he would not choose any of us. He would tell her the same thing and cut us both off. March 2020, he comes begging me for another chance. I forgave him, as I felt that he let someone from his past and never gave our relationship a real shot. We have a deep talk about what happened, and I believe there's a newfound sense of honesty. He shows he's working towards repairing our relationship by calling me every second he gets, telling me when he gets home. I ask if he has been in contact with the other girl, and he says no. He says he still has feelings for her, but not enough to do anything, and that his feelings for me were stronger. He wants me to quarantine over his house during COVID. I'm skeptical and want him to prove his worth, and he gets upset at my comments and expressing my feelings. I start to believe there's improvement and want to quarantine, only to find he has issues with his son again. I give him space. Eventually, I decide that with all that's going on, he doesn't have the capacity to give me what I need in a relationship, and it's not fair to me. I'm prepared to end it with him, but he's working overtime. The next day, he puts me on speakerphone with the other girl to tell me that we can no longer be friends and that we can't talk anymore because he's trying to make things right. I'm furious to find out that he lied and shout on the phone to say we should meet up and get our stories straight. He says that he doesn't have feelings for me anymore and tried to break it off with me multiple times, which is the lie he told her and painting it like he tried to. The other girl says whatever's between me and my ex is between us. He's trying to make things right with her. He comes by my place to have one talk, and I return his items to him and ask him what happened this time. He never cut her off when he said he did. Someone was sending her anonymous texts that he was still in contact with me, which is how she found out. He said he learned his lesson this time. He thinks she won't take him back. I told him I didn't want anything to do with him after this, but glad he's learned. We part on a positive note. The next day he tries to call me and I ignore him. A few days after, he blows up my phone, but I have his number blocked. He's called about 12 times throughout the day. Curiosity gets to the best of me and I answer to see what he wanted. He tells me eating isn't the same without me. Gaming isn't the same. He has no motivation to do anything. I question, didn't you say you lost feelings for me? But he says he didn't know because pushed it so far down. He's blocked her and risking it all, even though his chances with me are slim to none. I fall for his sappy words and tell him I need time. He reluctantly obliges. Couple days he blows up my phone again, and I don't answer until his final call. He says, "Don't want to talk to me?" And I mentioned that I needed time. My final answer was that I wouldn't take him back because he wouldn't learn anything. As much as I cared, I wanted someone worthy that I deserve. Someone who is on the same page as me in life, financially, goals, family, etc. He agreed and said, "You're right. You do deserve better, so I will move up in the company and make 6 figures to give you the life you deserve." We stop talking, and then calls me to tell me not be alarmed, but he's blocking me because he is so tempted to talk to me and call me every day. Then he calls a few days later repeatedly to ask if we can unblock each other because he can't stand not talking to me but want to remain friends. I enjoy his company, but he continues to flirt with me. Also, when I hear his phone go off while we're gaming, I get thoughts of betrayal if he's still talking to her. I decide that if I want things to be different, we need to go no contact and reevaluate, is this something we both even want later. He's upset but agrees. During no contact, I see this game he's always wanted for free and send him an email, since he's blocked me on every single social media phone, and at this point, this is how we're communicating. At this point, I felt my life was better away from him. Things were less toxic. I was killing it at work and my friends were back in my life. I think I had lost feelings by then and were 1 week away. He replies in the email saying that gaming was fun, but honestly I don't feel the same anymore. So I'm like, sure, give me my closure talk and we'll part ways. I get a text from the other girl who asks if I want to talk. I'm shocked but agree. We talk on the phone for 5 hours to align our stories. Turns out he was dating us simultaneously the entire time, except when I met him in November. Shortly afterwards, once I had cut him off, she wanted him back, and he started seeing the both of us, sleeping over at her and my place. When he was made it official with me, he was still talking to her. When they got into a fight, bringing me to the pool tournament was to send a message to her that they were done. However, he told her I wasn't his girlfriend, just a friend, and so she tried to show him that she wanted him. He would constantly lie to her and say he doesn't have any feelings for me, and that I was trying hard to win him back, even though he treated me like shit. All the sweet lines he used with me, he used with her. Even the lines about his phone issues, being sick, his son, depression, recycled content. We were shocked. She and I found each other to be more similar than we thought and created a bond. She was still seeing him, whereas I was cutting him off. In my closure talk with him, he told me that he needs to get rid of his fuckboy status. And once everything is good, he saw Maya as his future wife status, because no matter what, we'd have a special place in each other's life, even if it's not right now. I started falling for it again. Then I had told her what he had told me, and she said on the phone he said to her, "Once this is over, let's move in together." I snapped back into our plan. She kept falling for his words, spent the weekend and wanting to believe everything he was saying was so genuine. I decided to show her that what he's doing is continuing to lie. I pretended to want him back to see what he'd do, so we video called for what he believed was our closure talk. I told him, "What if I wanted another chance? Why didn't you fight for it?" And he thought he didn't have a shot because I didn't give him that option. When I did, he took it. I told her that he fell for it. He started flirting with me and telling me how he missed me and how cute I was. I wanted to save her from his lies. We decided to find a day to confront him because she's so torn by his feelings and lies. We wanted to leave on civil terms as adults as we have mutual friends. Plan went into action, and I met up at her place. He was to meet her for coffee when we both approached his car. He said he planned for us two to talk and felt blindsided by us wanting to approach him. If she and I had talked, what was there left for him to be there? We wanted the truth from him where he couldn't deny anything else. Instead, he got highly emotional and began shutting down due to stress. He had told me that I had done nothing wrong, I was perfect. A great girl, he just couldn't let go of his first love. And the other girl, his first love, had hurt him so badly before. Once she showed him that she wanted him back and changed, he was stuck between the two. He couldn't decide who he loved more and make a decision. Those two got into an altercation, and he used something she confided in him against her as an ugly fight. She shut down and walked away. I couldn't find her to see if she was okay. He ended up offering me a ride home and apologizing for hurting me so bad. He said his emotions are all running, but it hasn't sunk in yet, but he wanted me back. I hesitated, thinking the only obstacle was her, and I had never done anything to break his trust. So badly I wanted to be the girl who got away, but also have our real shot at love. He asked if I wanted to stay the night, but I didn't think it was a good idea. We ended up making out in his car in front of my door, and he persuaded me to go over. After spending the night, he felt hurt by the way things went down between him and the other girl, which is understandable. He said that all three of us should meet again to talk. I messaged her, and she wanted none of it. I told her I was confused, and if she said if I wanted to pursue him to go for it. I came to the conclusion that nothing can work if he still had feelings for her, and decided to leave his house. He ran after me to try to stop me and talk. I stay one more night, and she later tells me that he was calling, begging for her back when I was at his house. I was furious. I called him to say, "Have you not learned anything?" He told me he loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. It was her that he wanted. I was so mad her couldn't tell me this sooner, but relieved. He ended up coming by to drop something off and we talked, reminisced, and left on good terms. I wished him good luck with her. She ended up trying to hear him out. They're still trying to work out if they can try it, but I think she'll take him back.